it in any detail yet.
That's a set discussion issue.
This is two things now that I've insisted that I'm gonna pester them about next episode. What is next episode? Casting?
Yeah.
When are we getting?
I'm gonna listen, but I don't think I'm gonna have much to say.
Well, I mean, I'll have fun like listening to other people talk about pretty people, but
yeah.
Mostly I feel like I don't know who that is and looking it up.
Well, I don't think Corey Olsen knows who actors are either, so I'm pretty sure the discussion's not going to be about suggesting
it's going to be
names. It's more about
photos of beautiful people.
What kind of person we're looking for.
Right. He's going to want a description of the casting description.
The Rock is obviously told us because I refuse to budge on that.
All right, so
if we don't get the people.
I do like the idea of Myron being the one to come up with the idea of going beyond the mountain because he's like, well, if it's like a mountain, it's going to be too wide. You're really not going to be able to. It's going to cover too much space. It's going to be too big. So there needs to be
it just needs to be too tall.
Myron invents the space elevator. This is awesome.
Yes.
It's just going to be too damn tall.
One.
We have to.
Well, it's going to be too wide.
Right.
It's going to be too wide is the problem.
Do we want to like this is the uttermost north and the uttermost south, and we've talked about the world is flat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to show like the walls of night at all?
No.
I don't think we need to see that here because you remember that we're still on the continent. We're in the uttermost north and the uttermost south of the continent itself. So we don't need to see that far.
South of the continent was basically the edge of the world at this.
No, I'm pretty sure there's water.
It's
that
not
goes
actually
around.
the furthest north. It's one's in the north and one's in the south, but there's more space past both of them.
Okay.
Because they're kind of like if you were to make an oval, the foci of the oval. That's where they are.
Well,
no,
I don't remember math.
Yeah, so like if you have a circle, you have a center point, right? But if you stretch it out to an oval, now you've got two center points, one here and then one down here, and that's where the two lamps are.
Marie's teaching geometry. Anyway.
Or attempting to very poorly.
I know what you're going for.
Okay.
I'm saying that there's more space past the lamp.
Yes. Yes.
It's not the lamp's not right on the
edge. Is the sea connected to the outer sea there? Is the sea connected to the outer sea at this?
I have no idea.
That point. Well, we should know that.
Not according to the Atlas of Middle Earth.
So it's just water.
There's water that goes around the entire continent and the continent of Valinor, but I don't even remember if that's there yet. But more importantly, there is water to the north and to the south of the continent.
Okay, so we're gonna dodge altogether.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Again. All right. So maybe we start in that discussion. We see this great mountain that's been raised up, and we see a discussion. Maybe they've all met together for a discussion. And Myron's like Myron's pointing out to Aule, we're not going to be able to do it. It's going to be too big.
Right. It's going to
be too wide.
Olympus Mons.
It cover the entire planet basically. If we do this,
the crust. It's going to just shatter.
It's going to be too heavy.
Shatter at the base, like at the furthest point of the base. It's going to just break because it's too massive. That's what Olympus Mons has done to the surface of Mars. So
he comes up with the idea of making pillars.
Right. Like, what if we narrow it? And this turns out, like, Aule's big thing is like, I mean, yeah, we could do that, but it has the danger of falling over, right? It's like, I mean, that would allow us to do it high enough. But if we don't secure the base, it could fall over at some point. And he's like, "How?" Which is
going to foreshadow.
What's gonna happen?
It's going to kind of foreshadow what's going to happen.
The guy, like, how is that ever going to happen? Don't be ridiculous. Like, what could possibly
What could go wrong?
And Gothmog is here. Gothmog is at this conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
And he's going to remember this conversation. In his little fanatic pea brain, he's going to be like,
so I think the
knock
way
it
we
over.
get to
Let's just knock it over.
No, Gothmog's not an idiot. Gothmog's not dumb. He's
My
very
head
correct,
movie.
but he's not an idiot.
he's not a goblin, right? He's not. All right. So the way we get to this, the way we start the scene, I think is Aule and Gothmog then traveling to the Northern Pillar to see how progress is going, and maybe they can have a little exchange. I don't know what they would talk about yet, but maybe they could be having like, oh, how so Melkor, huh?
Maybe I wonder if they're having the same problem we are. We have to.
Right? That's all right. Not so bad.
Well,
you jerk.
Maybe we have them talking about the problem.
Yeah, they should be discussing the issue. Like, Gothmog should be maybe pointing out what Myron is gonna be talking about. You know what I mean?
But Gothmog's not really an engineering guy, though.
Yeah.
Like, he's about the fire. He likes the fire thing, the light concept that's going to be
Maybe
involved.
Aule is talking out loud, and Gothmog is like, "Oh my god, this guy! I cannot."
Actually, yes.
Where Aule's like, "Okay,
Yes,
so,
because Aule's a
yeah."
nerd.
He's like, "So I mean, the seismic. He should use like kind of geological jargon, maybe. The seismic forces are stable enough. That's not really the problem. The issue is that the weight ratios are blah 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 blah." Like a little.
We really want this conversation in a Silmarillion TV adaptation.
I kind of like it though, because that was one of the things that really, as time went on, the Valar became more and more aware of how like physics works. Like that was his big problem with the sun and the moon that Tolkien really had difficulty with towards the end of his life. Was like, that's so stupid. They wouldn't know that the moon is craters on it and not that it was burned by the sun. Like that's so dumb. I can't do that. And it doesn't need to be like excessively, you know what I mean? But it should, a couple, like seismology, I feel like would be a thing that he would know about.
We could definitely see like a few seconds of dialogue and then a shot of Gothmog just like, I don't care.
Where do you want me to put these rocks?
Can we just get to the meeting, please? Like that's the thing.
So
we hurry up and get to the meeting. Like Al, like
so they get to the meeting
in his stride to be like, well, but I mean, if we could just figure out some way to, and Gothmog's like, no.
And remember, the Balrogs have
the pillars are like Barad-dûr. The pillars are like Barad-dûr.
What do you mean?
Sauron is eventually going to build this immense, and I forget that it actually tells you somewhere how tall it is. Somewhere, I don't remember where, but I remember it says somewhere.
Oh,
that
the
it's
tower!
really,
The
Tower of Barad-dûr.
Yeah, right. Man. Oh,
yeah, Sauron knows how to build towers.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. Okay, so that's perfect.
It should kind of look like or at least have some of the artifice of the, because it should be pretty. It should be a fancy pillar, right? It should look nice. Yeah. And then when we finally see Barad-dûr 10 seasons from now,
10
or 30 or whatever it happens. He builds Barad-dûr after Numenor goes down, right? He raises Barad-dûr.
No, he rebuilds it. He rebuilds it.
So I mean, it's not going to be that many seasons away. It'll be towards the end of the project, but it'll be at least.
We're not going to see Barad-dûr for a long time. But those who binge watch,
they'll be able
the show for like an entire year.
With this kind of stuff, with a project of this scale, like it's the same. When I read The Lord of the Rings, I always find stuff where I'm like, "Oh my god, it's so amazing!" right? Like
Yeah,
stuff that I
every single
read
time.
a million
Every single
times
time.
and never noticed or never remembered for any
Yep.
reason. It would be
Yep.
perfectly fine doing that kind of visual callback to something that happened in season 1. Like,
absolutely. So maybe Myra. Well, and so they're having this discussion, and Myron's like, "All right, but there's got to be a way where we can make it.
I think
where we
Myron's
can make it
figured
tall
it
enough without making it too wide."
Myron's already
Well,
figured
maybe he's like, okay. So he says, we'll do it of metal. We'll make it out of metal.
Yeah. And then
Are they going to invent rebar?
Yes, no, not exactly, but the idea of using steel, of using metal in the construction of the pillars, that's going to be Myron.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And he got the idea from Melkor. Basically, like seeing Melkor's fire, he's like, "Oh, I have an idea for this," because iron requires heat in order to be
a lot of heat. Yeah.
That's the angle. Is that like Alec comes up and he's like, "I've thought about this, and making the base wider is the only solution because there's nothing that we can use." And Myron's like, "Aha! Check this out," and he shows him like steel.
So maybe
we figured this out together.
In the beginning, it is Ale with his team and Melkor with his team on the 2 different towers.
Yeah.
And then they have this meeting, and during the meeting, Myron's like, no, but we could do this. And it's like, oh, well, you should go work with Melkor on that.
Right.
Like, Ale kind of just is like, oh, sure. And Melkor's like, oh, and I can send my guys down to you to help move all your rock around to that giant mountain you're...
Maybe this whole thing is the prototyping stage. They haven't split their teams yet. That works a little.
Okay.
Yeah.
They haven't split.
Okay. That works too.
So and this makes and then we don't necessarily have to have like we're not going to have like a nerd versus jock conversation on the way to the meeting.
As fun as that would be, we'll save it.
I'm not super comfortable with that.
I know. But it's hilarious.
We'll save it for the flashback.
All right.
Too.
Yeah, it's a good outfit.
All right.
Yeah, so open with them discussing, and they're in the prototyping stage, and this is maybe it's an argument between Myron and Ale, where he's like, "Look, I've thought about this, and the only way it works is if it's like a mountain. It has to be wide at the base, or else we just don't have the strength that we need for to stabilize."
Right.
And Myron's like, it's not going to work because it's going to break the crust. You're never going to have a mountain that's big enough that's going to be able to stably hold this. I say we have save the jock versus nerd conversation for and then I can't read anymore.
The outtakes, yeah. But what's interesting about this is that Ale is going to need some of the proto Balrogs, these angelic spirits of fire, to help him
with that,
create enough heat to make the steel.
So
whereas on the other, Melkor's already there, but he's going to need Myron's engineering abilities to be able to do it.
Says, well, what about metal? We could use metal, and he's like, what are we going to use? Like, we can't use any of this radioactive stuff. That's not going to work, right?
Why do they have radioactive stuff?
Because metal, right? He's coming. There are tons of metals that are stronger than iron, right?
Yes.
But I would call them unsuitable. Like, one of the nice things about iron is that it's actually fairly flexible, right?
And you can find it everywhere.
It's plentiful.
It's not like.
And it doesn't take a lot of effort to shape it, whereas a lot of the other ones are.
And
really,
so Ale is like, I mean, look at this thing. It's just not. It doesn't. He bends. You could have an iron bar. He's like, I mean, I like it. It's good, but it's not going to work. Right? What do you plan to use? And
maybe Melkor steps in and says,
I would like Myron to be like, hey, Melkor, can you take a look at this? Okay. I would like him to invite him, because Melkor doesn't truck with delays. He's very like, look, this is all very fascinating, but can we get back to like, can we just do it and see how it goes? Like, he gets impatient really quickly. It's like, and so he's kind of, I would like him to kind of roll his eyes and walk away from the conversation. And Myron's like, Melkor, what do you think about this? Like I want him to kind of be interested.
Well, maybe we can take that impatience. Maybe we can, but on the other hand, we could have him show his impatience by Melkor being like, and voila, steel. Not necessarily. I mean, you need carbon, but
I kind of want Myron
have Owlay go, and then be like, and Owlay can still bend it, but he can't bend it as easily.
Well, he looks at it, and he does his little thing, and he's like, "Oh, this is awesome." But I would like Myron.
This is way stronger. Yeah.
Like I kind of want Myron to be. Yeah, I want him to kind of be I want him to be like clearly good, right? Like clearly doing good things in sort of the service of Manway, because not only because it'll kind of be worse when he goes down, but also because his big sort of conflict is Manway versus Melkor through the whole season, right? So if he's big into Manway's whole harmony idea at the beginning, and then just gets grumpy when Manway doesn't assert himself in the way that he wants him to. So that's how I see depicting that on the screen is he kind of, him and Owlay are having this disagreement, and his solution is to bring somebody else in, which is exactly what Manway wants them to be doing. But of course, the one he's bringing in is like the worst possible guy that you could ever possibly bring in, right? So he takes the iron and he's like, Melkor, do you have any ideas? And Melkor, to this point, has kind of been too bored. But whenever somebody's like, hey, Melkor, whenever somebody appeals to Melkor, he's like, well, I guess I could be bothered to maybe take a look at it. But, in sort of that way that he has. So he picks it up and he's like, I don't know what else to do except make it hot. So he makes it hot and it turns into a steel beam, right? Or it doesn't have to be a steel beam, but like, it should be.
Karita has some input. She says that if Myron is looking for Melkor's approval or input, it might clue Melkor into the idea that this guy might be a good worshiper.
Yeah. Like,
so Melkor is going to like
that they have a relationship of some kind.
Yeah.
It starts here, though. This is the beginning.
Yeah, this is the first. Myron, because Myron's not getting anywhere with Owlay, because Owlay's like, no, it's got to be more like a mountain. And he's like, mountains are not going to work. And he's like, well, I don't know what else to do. So,
okay.
I think that should increase Myron in Owlay's esteem, where Owlay's like, man, that was good thinking. Way to go.
Yeah, that was a good idea.
Where he's not like, Owlay's not prideful in that way, right? He just wants to get the problem solved, and they're having a block, right? And so they're arguing in sort of a friendly, and they're arguing in the way that engineers argue about what's the best way to bridge the river or whatever it is, right? They're both on the same team, they just have different ideas. And so Myron finally says, well, I don't know, maybe we should get an outside perspective. Melkor, why don't you take a look at this? Can you do something with this? And it's his idea that he wants Melkor to look at, right? He's like, let's focus on my idea, because clearly Owlay doesn't know what he's doing, right? Well, not in that way, but sort of a little bit of that. Let's focus on my idea. My idea's good. So we have them now, and rather than having like some ugly foundries, we basically have these fire elementals kind of doing the processing, right? And so now somebody has to be taking care of the light itself, the project of the light itself, right?
Because that's when we're gonna get. That's how we're gonna get Nessa out there in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
So, is this Varda?
Varda is kind of spearheading the light thing.
She kind of has to, right?
She has to. Yeah. There's nobody else.
Well, the host had talked about having Melkor in charge of actually filling the lamps. We're really kind of going away from what they were going for here. But I think the key here is really going to be the whole Nessa Tulkas thing. That's going to be the big part of it. Most of what we're talking about is mechanical kind of backdrop things, setting up things that are going to be happening in the future.
Right. But I mean, if they really wanted him, because it is true that we want Melkor to think the lamps are his, and that was how they thought that he would feel that way, as if he did the light part, right? That if he gathered the light.
So what if